Hello, dudes, dudettes, duders, and everyone in between. Now that Resolve, Premiere, and YouTube all have automatic subtitle tools implemented, I wanted to give them a side-by-side test. To be clear, we aren't testing which AI is the best. We're testing which tool set deviates from our expectations the least. Good and bad are qualitative, deviations are quantitative. So, what are these expectations? Well, they aren't mine, that's for sure. They're on loan from Gabriel Garcia Marquez. For this test, I read the first paragraph from 100 Years of Solitude and fed that recording into each of the subtitle generators. The recordings were clean. This is a test of the AI's ability to translate creative intent, not to fill in the blanks on poor recordings. This text was chosen for specific reasons. Although I don't think it was Marquez's intention when he wrote the book, he created something uniquely challenging for an AI to parse. The story is impossibly non-linear, blurs the lines between reality and the fantastic, and there are like 10 names shared between about 100 characters. 100 Years of Solitude is fundamentally a book by humans, for humans. Furthermore, the book does not adhere to AP or Chicago style guides. The punctuation is as much an indication of the author's intent as are the words, and this makes deviations between the source text and the AI interpretations all the more likely. The goal of this test was to create as many deviations as possible in a short amount of time without resorting to random nonsense. Meaningless text would result in a meaningless test. I read the text in English, and the translation I used was by Gregory Rabassa. Because we were reading in English, we didn't count missing accent marks on names as a deviation. As expected, the software didn't apply any accents to any names because it was transcribing in English, not Spanish. Also, just to keep things fair, we fed the paragraph to a human control subject as well. Our John Henry in this experiment had a decade of experience as an editor of academic textbooks, so we knew that we could rely on them to be technically accurate. While the computers were given one shot at transcription, we accommodated the inherent weaknesses of the flesh by reading each sentence twice to our human, once at regular speed to get the context, and once slightly slower than their typing speed. This was, after all, a test of creative intuition, not how many words per minute the subject could type. The weak, soggy human and the mighty global supercomputers were assessed using 5 different metrics: spelling, grammar, punctuation, capitalization, and quotation. Any deviation from the original text was worth 1 point, which means that the higher the score, the more inaccurate the platform was. First, let's look at the human stats, because the mighty hands of time are always tightening around mortal throats, and that means that they're the only member of this competition who could possibly die before the end of this video. The flawed sack of meat and water delivered 50 deviations from the source text, half of them punctuation. Most of these punctuation deviations came in the form of commas added or commas removed. I'd assumed that this would be the biggest challenge for the tragic mortal, as their background was in academic text, and the creative punctuation of Solitude is difficult to guess, to say the least. The flawed human had fewer deviations than Premiere, which failed almost entirely at quotations. Quotes are uniquely difficult for AI to apply because it requires a broader understanding of the context of a passage to know what is being said by the author and what the author says characters said. Resolve was more accurate than any other transcription method, yielding only 27 deviations. I was a little surprised to see Resolve do so well in this test because their tools are latest to market and they're still in beta. Finally, YouTube was just scraping its teeth on the pavement with over 100 deviations in a single paragraph. This was a bit surprising to me because YouTube is processing audio into subtitles at an order of magnitude when compared to Premiere and Resolve. It automatically generates subtitles for every video that gets uploaded. I'm assuming they're focusing on quantity and not particularly invested in quality. I also imagine that if they opened the faucet on processing bandwidth, they could have the most accurate transcriptions of all of these companies. Those faucets just remain tightly closed. So, what do we learn from all this? I mean, nothing really. If you're going to commission transcriptions for broadcast, whether they're from a human or a computer, you're still going to need to do a polish pass, but we knew that already. As far as a cost-performance ratio goes, you can't beat YouTube because, it's free. That means the cost-performance ratio is basically infinity. That said, at $300 for a lifetime license, Resolve is delivering greater accuracy in its beta form than Premiere, and if you go to Premiere, you'll be paying for it once a month for the rest of your life. This creates a very odd situation because that means Premiere is cheaper the sooner you die. If Premiere is cheaper the sooner you die, it stands to reason that Resolve is more expensive the sooner you die. And what does that say about Blackmagic as a company? I asked an AI chatbot what it thought of my question, and well, it didn't understand the implications. Honestly, I'm not sure I trust AI any more than I trust Grant Petty at this point, so I'll be in my bunker transcribing my thoughts by hand, burning papers, and eating the ashes. Thank you so much for watching. God save the clean.